All right, so in the last video I mentioned there's two broad methods to account for bad debts, the allowance method and the direct write-off method. Today we're going to discuss the allowance method. And actually under the allowance method there's actually two methods. There's the agent receivables method and there's the percent of sales method. So let's begin with the agent receivables method, which is part of the allowance method. If you turn to page 331 in your textbook, in the middle of the page, you see an example. There's like a table there of a company called Musicland. And basically, it lists all the customers, an amount that are due, that are current, that are due in 30 days, 30 days past due, 60 days past due, 90 days past due, and over 90 days past due, and the total. So the total is $50,000. That's the total accounts receivable. That will agree to our general ledger accounts receivable account. But we just took the $50,000 and it's just broken up into different categories or buckets based on how old the receivables are. And in the agent receivable method, all we're going to do is we're going to apply a percent to each bucket to determine our allowance. So if you look at in this on page 331 in your textbook, you see they're applying for the current balance a 2% allowance, and then a 5% allowance here, a 10% here, a 25% for the 90 day, and then for the over 90 day, 40%. And when we multiply these out, we get 740, 325, 370, 475, and 360. All right. So these are percentages that the company uses. They're based on probably historical experience, based on history, how much it gets uncollectible based on their sales. And obviously, percents go up as we get older, which makes sense, right? Because the older a receivable is, the less likely we're going to collect it. And then when we add all these numbers up, we get 2,270. And that's what we're saying the allowance for doubtful accounts should be under the allowance method using the aging and receivable methodology. So again, we get an AR aging, which is just our accounts receivable broken up into these buckets. What's current, what's 30 days past due, 60 days past due, etc. And then we apply percentages to it. So I said here, based on historical experience, estimate how much each category is uncollectible. And that's what these percents are. So these percents will always be given to you, and this is the methodology we follow under the aging and receivables method to come up with what the allowance should be. So in this case, we're saying allowance should be 2,270. In the next video, we're going to see how we adjust for that. But for right now, you just have to know how to calculate the allowance using the aging and receivables method for the allowance method. Right, so the other way of doing the allowance method is called percent of sales. All right, and under the percent of sales method, what we do is we apply a fixed percent to the net credit sales. So since, for example, 1% of sales. So a company may say, for every credit sale we do, we can take 1% of it and we're gonna increase our allowance with that amount. So here's an example. This is pretty easy, by the way. So if net credit sales are 220,000 and 1% is deemed uncollectible, how much should be added to the allowance? Well, it's very easy, right? If our policy is to book 1% of sales, we can take the 220,000 in credit sales times 1%, and that's going to give us 2,200, right? So under the percent of sales method, we'll be booking an adjustment, which we'll see in the next video, for $2,200. So this is the calculation we do under percent of sales method. We just take percent times the sales, and we're going to adjust the allowance, increase the allowance by that amount. And on the allowance method, we age the receivables and we determine a balance for the allowance. All right, so those are the two ways to do the allowance method, which is pretty much what all companies do. And in the next video, we'll review this and we'll look at the required journal entries under each method. Thank you.